There are habits in your life that don't look dangerous. They don't cause arguments. They don't raise alarms. They don't feel like mistakes. They feel normal. And that's why they're powerful, because the habits that shape your relationships, your confidence, and your emotional life the most are usually the ones you don't notice at all. No one wakes up and decides to drift away from the people they love. No one plans to feel disconnected. No one chooses to slowly become someone they don't recognize. It happens quietly, through repetition, through small moments that feel insignificant in the moment, but compound over time. You check your phone while someone is talking. You say, "I'm fine," instead of explaining how you really feel. You postpone the conversation because you're tired. You tell yourself you'll reconnect later. Later becomes next week. Next week becomes next year. And one day, you look at your life and feel something you can't quite explain. Distance, numbness, a quiet sense that something is off, not broken, just eroded. Most people think bad habits are obvious: overworking, anger, addiction, self-destruction. But the most damaging habits don't look bad at all. They look responsible. They look productive. They look harmless. They look like survival. You stop expressing needs because you don't want to be a burden. You stop asking questions because you assume you already know the answers. You stop being curious about the people closest to you because life feels too full. Not because you don't care, but because you're exhausted. And exhaustion doesn't just drain energy, it drains presence. When you're tired long enough, you stop noticing what's missing. You stop reacting. You stop repairing small fractures before they grow. You adapt. Humans are incredibly good at adapting to emotional discomfort. We normalize distance. We normalize silence. We normalize disconnection. We tell ourselves, this is just adulthood. This is how relationships are. This is normal. But normal doesn't mean healthy, and invisible habits don't announce their damage. They reshape you slowly. They teach you to settle for less closeness, less honesty, less depth, until one day the absence feels louder than any argument ever could. This video isn't about blame, and it's not about fixing everything overnight. It's about learning to see what you've been living inside without realizing it. Because once a habit becomes visible, it stops having total control over you. And the first step toward change isn't effort, it's awareness. Invisible habits don't destroy relationships suddenly. They weaken them gradually, in ways that are easy to rationalize. You don't stop caring. You stop showing care. You don't stop loving. You stop expressing love. And the most dangerous part is that nothing feels wrong enough to confront. Small moments go unacknowledged. A tone change you notice, but ignore. A question you don't ask because the answer might be uncomfortable. A feeling you push down because there's no time to deal with it right now. So you choose efficiency over connection, comfort over honesty, silence over clarity. Not because you're careless, but because you're managing overload. Modern life trains us to prioritize functioning over feeling, to stay productive, to keep things moving, to avoid emotional friction, and slowly, without realizing it, relationships become another task to manage instead of a space to inhabit. You start interacting instead of connecting, responding instead of listening, coexisting instead of relating. This is where many people get confused. They say, "We don't fight. There's no drama. Nothing bad is happening," and that's true. But nothing alive is happening either, because intimacy doesn't disappear through conflict alone. It disappears through neglect, through emotional shortcuts, through assumed understanding, through the belief that closeness maintains itself. It doesn't. Closeness needs attention the same way a language needs to be spoken to stay alive. When attention fades, distance grows, quietly. Another invisible habit is emotional self-reliance taken too far. At some point, you learn to handle things alone, to process quietly, to not ask for help unless absolutely necessary. That strength helped you survive, but over time, it may have taught you to exclude others from your inner world. You stop sharing struggles not because you're strong, but because you don't want to explain yourself. You stop opening up not because you don't trust, but because you're tired of feeling misunderstood. So you carry everything internally, and from the outside, you look composed, capable, independent. But internally, you feel unseen. Not because others don't care, but because they don't know where you are anymore. Invisible habits don't just change how others treat you. They change how you show up. They make you quieter, more guarded, less spontaneous. They teach you to edit yourself in small ways that feel reasonable. Until one day, you realize you've been slowly shrinking to fit a life that doesn't fully meet you. And the most painful part, you can't point to a single moment where it went wrong. There was no explosion, no betrayal, no clear mistake. Just a series of moments where presence was postponed. This is where awareness matters, because once you recognize these patterns, you stop confusing numbness with peace, and you stop accepting emotional distance as maturity. You realize that many things you thought were just how it is are actually habits that can be unlearned. Awareness doesn't demand immediate change. It asks for honesty. Once you see these invisible habits, you may feel a strange mix of relief and discomfort. Relief because there's finally language for something you felt for a long time. Discomfort because you can't unsee it. You begin to notice how often presence is delayed, how easily connection is postponed, how familiar distance has become, not as a failure, but as a pattern. And patterns don't define who you are. They describe what you've been repeating. The most important shift isn't becoming more expressive overnight. It isn't fixing relationships immediately. It isn't forcing emotional conversations. It's slowing down enough to notice when you're about to disappear from a moment, when you choose distraction instead of attention, when you default to silence instead of curiosity, when you assume instead of asking. These moments are small, but they're powerful, because habits are built in the smallest decisions, not the dramatic ones. You don't rebuild closeness by doing something extraordinary. You rebuild it by interrupting what has been happening automatically, by staying present a few seconds longer, by listening without planning a response, by letting someone see what you usually keep internal. Not all the time, just enough to shift the pattern. And sometimes, the most honest realization is this: you weren't losing people. You weren't failing relationships. You weren't broken. You were exhausted. And exhaustion teaches us to survive, not to connect. If this video resonates, let it be a mirror, not a judgment. Invisible habits lose power the moment they become visible. And visibility is where change begins. And now, as you sit with this awareness, remember this: change doesn't need urgency. It doesn't need perfection. It only needs presence. Notice the small moments. Notice when attention drifts. Notice when distance becomes habit. These glimpses are the doorway back to connection, to yourself, to others, to life lived fully. Invisible habits lose their power when they are seen, and seeing them is enough to start shifting quietly, one small moment at a time. And as you reflect on these patterns, remember, connection isn't rebuilt in grand gestures. It's rebuilt in moments you actually show up, in the seconds you choose to listen fully, in the choices to be present when it would be easier to drift away. Every quiet act of awareness is a step back toward closeness. Invisible habits may have shaped your life, but now your attention has the power to reshape it again.